Thank you. How to let me set my stopwatch so I don't take more time. Do I need a microphone? Can everyone hear me? Yes. Alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me with a huge body, so my voice is extremely. Is it this one? Yeah, this one. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mahmoud. I am an Egyptian. I was born in Dubai, lived there until high school. Then I took my master's and bachelor's in pharmacy and master's degree in pharmacy and pharmaceutical chemistry. Then life took me to South Korea for some reason. I've been there for now 5 years. I'm having my PhD in something called nanobiomedical engineering. You do not know what does it mean. I too do not know what does it mean. That's why I'm staying there for 5 years until now. So, as my colleagues have said, that I'm also the president of the Muslim Student Association in Korea, and I study in KIST, not KIST, KIST. You can find all about MSAK, just write MSAK on Facebook, or you'll find it on Google. So, what are the challenges? Yeah, we saw that Korea is a booming country, everything is pink and walking in the park. But that's not the case. When, as Brother Sabur said, and Sister Joyeria and Brother Amir said, that actually there was a decline in the number of international students in 2014. They had a target, but then when they reached the peak, they went down and then they're coming back again. So there are many challenges that are facing the international students that go and study in South Korea. Now, of course, Sister Joyeria talked about the language barrier. So I'm going to skim it, but I'm going to talk about something that you didn't mention, which I think would be very important for you guys. Number one, of course, Koreans generally do not speak English. This is, of course, natural. If you go to any other country, most probably they will not speak except the language of that country. If you go to the United States, they speak English. Rarely you find them speak Spanish unless they are down south and so forth. If you go to Canada, they speak the language of the country. If you go to Egypt, United Arab Emirates, they speak the language of the country. In Korea, it's the same case. But the difference is that even when they try to speak English, sometimes you got lost in the translation. So this is one of the major issues, that even when they try their best, they still give you wrong information because of the difference in the chronological order of the words between the Korean and English. As also it was mentioned that most of the roads and shops and bank transactions, everything, it's in Korean. Even when I tried once, I had extra some money, so I wanted to buy stocks in Samsung. Of course, it was too expensive, but that didn't let me stop doing this. I found out in the contract, it's certain that unless you are a fluent speaker in Korean, you're not allowed to buy or have any bank transactions that in the stock exchange. And this is one of the major issues, that unless you have a Korean who will help you in the process and he will take the whole thing, you cannot speak. This is how it's deep in the system, that they did not yet implement English as a language in their system. For the undergraduate courses, of course, most of the courses are taught in Korean. Like most of the courses in Turkey are taught in Turkish. If you go to Germany, most of them in German. But the issue is that when they try to help you and translate the exams for you, all the international students found out that the translation is very bad. That they preferred actually to have it in Korean than they can have it in English because it's very bad. There's of course too much competition with the native speakers. If you do not know what a Korean does in his daily life, you will need to know that during their studies, they spend more than 14 hours a day just studying. So now imagine 14 hours studying, workaholic studying, and yet you cannot even compete with the native language. So this is also another issue that many students are facing, that even when they are so bright, they cannot challenge and compete with the native speakers. Even if they study hard like them, they still have the language barrier. Of course, the university notice boards are all in Korean. I have a picture in my lab. This is like one of them in my lab. These are like 5 papers. Until today, I do not know what's written on them, because I don't speak Korean. So that's why I always use it. Oh, I cannot speak Korean, I'm sorry. I can't understand. So they let me go with so many wrong things in the lab. Of course, the important emails, they just tell us in the end, translate in Google Translate. And of course, the Koreans, it's not easy to form friends unless you speak their language. It's normal. For example, if I come to Turkey and I tell them I want to be friends with you, they will be friends because we are Muslims. But now imagine if they remove the Muslim factor from it. Will they become friends if you don't speak Turkish? Of course not. You have to speak the language of the people if you want to be friends with them. Plus, in addition, you need to know that the Koreans are very close people because they have been under siege for so many years. Everyone who was passing by was taking them under their rule, like what happened to them in the World War from the Japanese and so on. They became free only in the 60s. So until today, they still have the feeling that they are under siege. So they are not very open to the foreigners. So unless you speak their language, they will not be that open when communicating with you. And of course, one of the main issues that I suffer, and many of my colleagues are suffering, that there's no good reason to learn Korean. If you go outside the Korean peninsula, you will never use Korean language. Because Korean is not the language of science, it's not the language of business, and when you look at the total number of people in the world that speak Korean, you will not exceed 40 million people. Then why should I learn Korean language? I can learn Arabic, like for example, they learn Arabic because they need it for their business in the Middle East. They can learn German, they can learn German because they need it, because German is a powerful language in science. English, of course, is the language of everything right now. French, half of the world speaks French. Chinese, of course, now. But what about Korean? Why should I learn Korean? If I leave Korea, I will not use it. So that's one of the main issues, that even this, if you force them to learn Korean, they will not learn Korean. They will feel this this barrier. And as I noticed with Brother Sabur when we came, because Brother Sabur speaks Turkish also, he also studied Korean. He noticed that when the foreigners in Turkey, they study Turkish, they are more fluent than Korean, the foreigners who study Korean. And this is, of course, something normal, because Turkish has Arabic, it has Persian, it has so many common words. But Korean has nothing in common with any language. It's just an isolated language. It's even called an isolated language. Maybe some words coming from Japan and from China, but when you go look at the half of the other world, we're not interested in that words. We don't learn these words. So that's what are the challenges. You have the cultural challenges. When first you have to know the Koreans are very attached to their culture. Very attached to their culture. Because even if you look at open Wikipedia and write Korean nationalism, there's a whole page about Korean nationalism, because this was their basic idea when they started in the revolution in the 60s. So they're very attached. Now, when I came to Turkey, in the airport, when I met Brother Muhammad, he kissed me. I was shocked. Why? Because in Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Turkey, we use this as a way of greeting. Now, Brother Sabur was a little bit shocked, because in Afghanistan, they do not use this method of greeting, but they still shake hands. Now, imagine you go to a country that they don't even shake hands. They just bow at you from far away. This is the huge culture gap that we have between us. When I came today and saw the parquet or the wooden, I had the same thing in my home in Egypt. In Korea, this is considered to be ugly. Why? Because they believe in ceramics and so on. They believe in different type of beauty. So they are very attached to their culture, and they want you to be part of their culture, not the opposite. They're not willing to sacrifice. So this is a huge issue that's facing foreigners when they go there. Now we have the Korean working culture, because the drinking habits. Of course, Koreans are one of the most highest people drinking alcohol, and it's considered taboo. If they offer you alcohol, you say no. It's because how come you say no? It's not a choice, because it's in their culture to drink as a sign of respect to the older. And even they have a way of drinking. You don't need to know how I knew about this. You have of course, Korean working culture. You have the yagin. The yagin is an ideology that if you do not sleep in your work next day, this means that you didn't work hard yesterday. They start working from 9 a.m. and they finish at 11 p.m. And they expect me to work like that. I'm not working that much. Nothing in life deserves me to work from 9 to 10 every day. But in their case, they do this. And another thing, if their boss didn't leave the workplace, they are not allowed to leave. It's not written in the contract, but it's a sign of respect. He's my boss. I cannot leave. So they sit and they sleep, or they play FIFA or whatever on their computers. In my case, I just stand up and leave. Where are you going, Mahmoud? I'm not Korean, and I leave. But many others, foreigners, they feel, I need to be part of them. So they are very tired of so much work. But it's, you know, they became one of the highest, they exploded, or they boomed in 40 years. So this is how they did it. They're workaholics. They work so hard. And that's why they have even the highest rate of suicide amongst the OECD countries. Because so much workload. And of course, the Korean foreigner discrimination is, you know, it's not, you know, they will not show it to you, but you will find it out when you ask him, how is Korea doing politically? They will tell you, nothing's happening. Everyone is talking about what's happening, but they will not share it with you because you're a foreigner. This is something secret. So this is also a thing that you will, of course, workplace competition. You have to know that in Korean culture, the colleague in his work is just a colleague. Even if they work together for 10 years, he's just a colleague because there's competition. But his best friend is the school friend because there's no competition between them. So in the workplace, there's always competition. He always wants to be best. And if you're standing in his way, he will destroy you. Of course, literally, he'll not kill you, but he will work harder than you. So if you want to, let him commit suicide, work hard, and he will work more and more and more until he dies working hard. Now, other problems, of course, facing, the number of available scholarships are relatively low when you compare for a country that has, so much money. When you compare it with, for example, the United States, there are so many scholarships in the United States. But in South Korea, one of the great, now it's the 6th largest economy, and yet the number of scholarships are very low for international students. You can expect this number of scholarships in a country that is, low in its income. But for a country that's that big, it only has around 3 or 4 main scholarships, and the others are very, very minor scholarships. Of course, as I said, we have the one main governmental scholarships, which is KDSP, which was mentioned before me. And of course, the minor localized, giving very low stipends. The cost of life, as it's mentioned, is very high when compared to the available scholarships type stipends. So, because on average, you take $900 irrespective of anything. If you are married, if you have family, it's $900. If you live in the city or if you live in the suburbs, it's $900. They do not differentiate. So that's why some people are getting injustice. They're living in Seoul, it's very expensive, and they're getting the same amount in someone who's living in a village, and it's very cheap. So this is also another issue that's facing many people. Of course, irrespective of the marital and familial status, and of course, housing problems, the rent cost, the house sizes are very small. If you go to South Korea, the apartments are very, very small. And for them, it's big, because they are used to this type of space. But in our countries, if it's not an apartment with a balcony, it's not an apartment I'm going to live in. In their case, they can live underground and live for years and years without having any issue with it.